Razorback Nation, we are back again with episode 27 of Hawgs on the Hill, your go-to podcast. For an in-depth dive into all things Arkansas Razorbacks, join us as we dissect the victories, analyze the plays, and revel in the spirit of the Hogs. Episode 27 is brought to you by Homefield. Step into the legacy of collegiate style with Homefield's premium vintage apparel. Embrace the spirit of your alma mater or even your favorite team with their meticulously crafted, comfortable, and stylish collections. Elevate your game day attire and celebrate the rich history of college sports. Homefield, where tradition meets comfort in every stitch. Use promo code Variety Sports in all caps to receive 15% off that first order. You know, holiday season is getting here, so perfect time to order your favorite loved one new Razorback shirt, pullover, quarter zip, whatever it may be. So go check out Homefield, and you can find the best of Arkansas apparel. And I'll apologize in advance for my voice. This weather's got me all jacked up with sinus and whatnot. Seth was relating, we were talking about that before we jumped on here, that the sudden weather change in Arkansas this time of year is not fun.
Yeah, it'll mess you up every time, man, especially if you're somebody that's prone to sinus issues like I am, and I know you are. It's the weather change is nice. I enjoyed that 38-degree crisp air this morning, but definitely feeling it, though.
100%. So we'll jump in here. We missed you last Saturday, so quick overview. You know, what were your thoughts on the Texas game? And it was a game where I felt myself torn between, I'm glad we didn't get blown out by 40, but on the other hand, it was very frustrating because we had all the opportunity in the world to win that game.
Yeah, that's my thoughts exactly. I will say, for jobs and things like that, we've been talking about the last couple of weeks, kind of how the last part of this season needs to go. I felt like this game wasn't necessarily a misstep, if you will. The only thing that really did hurt, though, is like how well our defense played, the adjustments that they made, whether it was scheming or even personnel. You notice several different guys playing in the secondary, shaking things up a little bit, and I thought that went better for us against a team that was expected to kind of do what Ole Miss did and throw it all over us, with Quinn Ewers coming off one of his best weeks in history, So that was a nice surprise with how well the defense played, but kind of made it a little bit even more disappointing, though, how well they played for the offense to kind of sputter the entire first half, really not able to get any rhythm. You got to give some credit to Texas defense. They made life hard on us for sure. And just really couldn't get enough going in the second half. The offense looked a little bit better in the second half, especially the third quarter. We outplayed them in the third quarter at least. But outside of that, it just wasn't quite enough. Can't knock the defense at all. So I was glad to see them bounce back and have a good showing against another tough team. But the offensive woes this year have just been kind of a head scratcher, honestly. We've improved at the offensive line, but we're still probably not where we need to be. I think that's kind of the consensus after, 10 weeks or so is, yes, we are better. We can run the ball better. We do have better pass protection to a degree. It's just not to the level that I think it needs to be to win SEC games at a consistent pace. Outside of that, I feel like, our skill positions and things like that have been pretty solid this year. It's been tough to get, certain guys involved, like Tesla, for example, with him not being like the first read like Armstrong is. He sometimes doesn't get the ball. There's been issues with drops from Broden, for example, that's kind of halted sometimes. That was critical early in the first half. I think that made it difficult to set the tone in that first drive when we had that interception off the bobbled ball. So, there's some head-scratching things on the offense, even though we have gotten better, that have made this year just have a strange taste. It's been a better year. I don't think anybody can argue that. And this game was a better game, even compared to some of the other, top 10 matchups that we've had to play against. We've had some stout opposition throughout the year. So that was all good things. It's just not enough to win. So that hurts, but that's my take on it. Lots of improvements have been happening throughout this year. It's just not enough to really compete with some of the upper echelon teams in the SEC. That said, you could finish the year still on a positive note with 2 very winnable games left. And you did, in my opinion, build a little bit of momentum in this Texas game, especially in the second half. I know it wasn't great, but I thought we did some things well and improved some things even after halftime, made the right adjustments. The defense, like I said, played hard the whole time, and you can kind of carry that forward, hopefully. But with the way this year, we've talked about it in a couple episodes in the past, we've talked how this year's kind of been a roller coaster. We'll have a good game one game and then turn around and absolutely flub it the next game. And so you never really know what you're going to get. So hopefully we can, keep a little bit of good consistency on the defensive side of the ball, and the offense can pick it up a little bit in these last two games. We can come over to two good wins to get us to a little bit better ball game.
Yeah, and I think for me, hitting real quickly before we move on in this Texas game is part of the course for just how Arkansas season's been. It just seemed in that second half, the things that needed to go Arkansas's way didn't. You had the Texas fumble that, of course, it just rolls out of bounds. But then you flip that right around. When we have a fumble, it bounces right to the Texas defender. And then, you have Talon overthrow Isaiah Satania. That would have been a walk-in touchdown for him. So it was one of those things where
there were several wide open touchdown type plays that he was either running for his life, backpedaling, and just kind of had to throw it and off his back foot, didn't get to the receiver for a wide open. Jaquindon Jackson was wide open in the back of the end zone on one. And then the overthrow to Satania was a little bit rushed. It's just, you can tell that there's potential with this team, that we could really be good if everything clicked on all cylinders all the time. But just some of the inconsistency at offensive line has hurt.
Yeah, 100%. So, Arkansas, and we'll hit on it in a little bit, but Arkansas goes into a must-win this week. You cannot drop this game to Louisiana Tech. It's your final home game of the season, but also if you're Pittman, I think the topic that has been swirling around this week is it seems like things might have shifted a little bit on his quote-unquote odds to return. I know I saw Brandon Marcello on 3 Sports, was talking. He doesn't think Pittman is done after this year, but that's before, if you lose to Louisiana Tech, there's no excuse now. It's almost like Chad Morris losing to Western Kentucky. That's a game that you've got to win. And it's going to be a big one. It's going to be nice, cold, crisp, fall weather for, an afternoon kickoff, senior day. Pittman mentioned this week all the seniors that are walking are gone, with the exception of Josh Braun. He said he's a guy that might come back. Other than that, everybody that's walking is done. You got to think like Hudson Clark's been here for 6 years, and several of those other seniors. He said the plan is still to redshirt Patrick Kudus, whether he plays this week and not Missouri, or whether he sits out this week and plays Missouri. He said they'll get that figured out on which game he's going to play to maintain that red shirt, because that's what they told him he was going to do. I'm trying to think other little tidbits he mentioned in press conferences this week. Most guys, I think, should be back. No injury report this week, as since we're not playing an SEC opponent, we're not, I guess, required to release an injury report update like we do if we're playing interconference games. But I think he said Selman Bridges should be back. We saw him miss last week in the secondary. I think the only guy that they say will be without this week is most likely Anthony Switzer. But other than that, most guys should be able to play. Braylon Russell, he is a guy that was said to be healthy last week, but he didn't get a single carry. Should be back this week. So, you should be fully healthy for the most part, and, just go out there and get the job done this week.
Yeah, to your point, it is a must win. I mean, that even though it's a non-conference and it's not a big matchup necessarily, those are the ones that really are the must wins. If you want to kind of slice and dice it that way. And I think to add to that, though, just with the impact that this game has on the season, it's even more of a must win. I mean, this was a must win no matter what, just with who it is and how you're supposed to beat them. And it's a disappointment if you don't beat them, but you have to beat them, because getting bowl eligible is something that you need to do, not necessarily to hang your hat on, but at least, provide you another opportunity at the end of the year to maybe add another win and make the resume look a little better, especially if you don't beat Missouri and you do finish 6-6. If you can win that bowl game and get 7 wins and be a little over 50%, it just makes the season look a little better than a flat 50. You know what I'm saying? So, or less than that if you lose your bowl game. It's kind of a two-way street there. But anyways, you've got to win this game. You really need to win it in good fashion and keep everybody healthy to where you're not having to, play guys significant minutes there towards the end. If you're able to maybe rest some of the defense that last fourth quarter or something like that, that would be big. I think in gearing us up to be fully, rested and ready to play Missouri in another game that maybe not a must win, but close. I mean, honestly, at this point, that's a very winnable game. That team is not great. If we can put, a couple good halves together, I think that's a winnable game. And I think everybody in the state knows that. And that makes that game even more crucial in my mind. Is everybody knows that one's winnable with how their season's gone, how our season has gone. It'll almost hurt even worse than if, they actually were a top 10 team and were looking like a top 10 team or something to go in there and lose. That's kind of more of those expected losses, like Ole Miss, for example. To me, it's kind of flipped a little bit to where that Missouri game almost is an expected win just with how poorly they've looked as of late and the injury issues they're having. If we can just put two halves together, it's possible. So, I don't know. These last two games, to me, they got a lot riding on them. Obviously, Louisiana Tech is your easiest path to bowl eligibility, and then Missouri, that was just kind of for pride's sake, honestly. It'd be better, to win that one just to get a little bit better bowl game, obviously, fine. But the fact that they've had our number the last 10 years more often than not, and they shouldn't, and that just leaves a bad taste in everybody's mouth. I don't like them. I can't stand them. They've been taking our players, and that doesn't help anything either. So I'm curious to see how these next 2 weeks go.
Yeah, I am too, 100%. Quick recruiting note for Arkansas. There's rumors out there of a potential flip for 4-star safety Omarion Robinson from Parkview, Little Rock. We saw earlier a few months ago, he decided to make the commitment to go to Oklahoma, I believe. And so now it's looking like he might be flipping back to Arkansas potentially. It's flip season, if you will. Now we've seen that, over the past few days, just even today with two big ones of Julian Lewis flipping from USC going to Colorado. And then the big one, LSU's 5-star quarterback flipping and going to Michigan, where Michigan really needs the help at quarterback. After losing J.J. McCarthy, this year's just been the revolving doors of quarterbacks for Michigan.
It's only going to be worse as far as flipping and things like that go, just with the way NIL is mucking up the game. I don't really know how else to describe it. When you have somebody that I think wanted to play for LSU, for example, but then basically gets an offer they can't refuse to go play at Michigan. I mean, there's speculation and a lot of reports out there that it was $10+ million, which is asinine level money to go play. I think there was some stipulation on how many years he had to be there, which I think you'll start to see more deals that are done that way, where it's not just, hey, you come here for a year and then it's free game after that each year. I think you're going to start to see some more of that kind of contractual type stuff where if you come here and we pay you this lump sum, then you stay here kind of thing.
Yeah.
And maybe that'll get us back to maybe kind of pre-transfer portal madness, hopefully. I know the portal giveth and the portal taketh away, but mixing the portal with NIL ridiculousness has just kind of been a strange combination for a lot of a wildness. So I think kudos to Michigan for maybe setting what could be the standard for high school recruits that are in the upper echelon on getting them to come play and actually retaining them for the development and things of that nature, and stick out the tough time to hopefully have a big impact. I'm sure he's going to play day one potentially, but I was very surprised to see that flip with how much LSU thought they had a grip on him. But money talks, man.
Well, it's like I saw something today that said he was literally at LSU like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. Everybody was saying that, Michigan threw that offer out there, but they were still expecting him to go to LSU anyways, and just based off of Twitter and things like that. But I think somebody might have thought long and hard and had, maybe I should make this business decision. And it's not like Michigan's a bad school.
Right,
it's
exactly.
colder up there. So,
yeah,
anyway,
100%.
Welcome to college football 2024, 2025. It's only going to get weirder until they start putting some better implementation and regulation in place.
I agree 100%. Jump over to Arkansas basketball, where Arkansas women's basketball, man, this season has been very weird. And at the rate it's going, it's like we talked about last week. You could be seeing a change in some leadership after this year if the trend that's currently going on keeps going. But we'll highlight Arkansas on November 14th took on UT Arlington. They win that game 93-65. Leading scorers: Izzy Higginbottom 29 points, Jenna Lawrence with 14, and Carly Keats with 13. Leading rebounders: Jenna Lawrence with 12, Vera Ojunwa with 6, and Danica Galea with 6. Arkansas shot 45% from the field in this game, 34-74, 52% from the three-point line, 13 of 25, and 63.2% from the free throw line. This is another one of those, it seems like it's a trending Mike Neighbors team where they live by the three, die by the three. And, when you shoot 52%, you're probably going to win most games from when you're shooting that good from deep.
Yeah, especially at that volume. I mean, making 13 out of 25. 25 is not just an exorbitant amount of threes, but it's quite a few. And making over half of those is wild. But when you can do that, yeah, it's going to result in a win. Hardly, again, it doesn't really matter who you're playing against. But obviously, competition level being a little bit underneath you, they did a good job doing what they were supposed to. But reality does strike.
Yeah, and that's very evident in this next game. We're on November 17th. Arkansas women's basketball went and took on number 5 UCLA. And no, this is not a typo. Arkansas lost this game 101-52. This team lost by 49 points on the road. Yes, they're the number 5 team in the country, but I don't think that's an excuse when you're an SEC school, Division I school, to get beat down by nearly 50 points. In this game, leading scorers: Izzy Higginbottom 15 points, Carly Keats 10, Kiki Smith with 8. Carly Keats was the leading rebounder with 5, and Jenna Lawrence had 5. And this is really where you can tell, I just mentioned when the threes aren't falling for Arkansas, it's going to be a tough night because they only shot 28.6% from the field, 18 of 63, 17.9% from deep, 7 of 39. They took 39 threes in this game, and then 81.8% from the line, which is great, but they only shot 11 and made 9 of those.
Yeah, it's back to what we had issues with last year. Mike hasn't changed his game plan at all, which frustration, honestly, from my perspective, because it didn't work last year, and everybody really saw that. There was nights that it did, but then most nights, especially when the competition was tougher and you couldn't get anything inside, it was just, to your point, jacking up 3 after 3 after 3 because we physically couldn't do anything else. We were living at the perimeter, couldn't drive inside, couldn't get any passes inside. We were outclassed, let's be real, talent-wise. But that's also a testament to how not great our coaching staff has done at getting players to come and or stay to play for this women's basketball team. So, to your point, they live and die by the 3. Sometimes you live, sometimes you die. They definitely died in this one. I mean, making 7 is fine, but when you shot 39, that's a wild number. That really is a tell of the story that you could not get into the paint. They physically could not do it. We were outclassed in this game. And so I think you got to go back to the drawing board all the way up to the top, in my opinion. I know it may be, till the end of the season before that happens, but we look like a D3 team out there at times, and that's just not acceptable when you're an SEC D1, Power 4 type institution. That's not acceptable. So whenever we want to pull a trigger, I think I think it's warranted. Would be the right way to say that. I'm just curious to see the timing on all of it, with obviously the investment in women's basketball being kind of the lowest on the totem pole right now. You're seeing good participation from the university investment-wise and support and all that kind of stuff for basically every other women's sport. And I'm not saying they don't have enough money or anything like that here, but you can just tell that like the incentive to win isn't there right now. And I don't know if they're just biding their time waiting for the right coach outside from here to become available or something of that nature. I'm really not sure. Part of it could just be, financially, we're not where we need to be to make this type of change yet, with other, looming things happening or something like that. I don't know. I'm not Hunter. I don't know. But to me, we look like the exact same team last year, but worse even, so it's something's got to give.
I was about to say, I mean, it would make sense that they seem to be worse, especially when you lose three of your top players, like we addressed last week. So, you brought in some talent, but I don't know if it's to the level of what we had here last year, and that's the struggle. Like you said, it is very early in the season, and there's a lot of season to go. But there's going to be I feel like have to be a drastic turn of events for this team to really figure out something and get turned around, or
to even be competitive. I'm not even saying win games
right.
or have a winning record necessarily, but like you can't get blown out every time you play somebody else that's a D1 team, and the only wins you have are against, low, B level type D1s or D2s or something crazy, like you just can't do that.
Yeah. The Lady Razorbacks were in action tonight versus Oral Roberts, and that game is finished up, and we'll hit that in just a minute. But we'll jump over to Arkansas men's basketball, where they've been slowly looking better and getting progress, but you still got a little bit of work to do before conference play gets here. They took on Pacific this past Monday, November 18th, where they got the win 91-72. And this was a game where Arkansas was shorthanded. You didn't have Brazil. We saw him go down last week with that ankle injury, and then still no Jonas Adu. He's hit or miss on whether he's going to get any type of minutes right now. They had a press conference today as Arkansas will take on Little Rock tomorrow, but with still no updates on those two guys. So you were kind of running a 7-man rotation here between, your regular starters, Duthiero, Boogie Flanelli Davis, Big Z, and then also Billy Richmond, Carter Knox off the bench, and
Wagner.
And Wagner, yeah, DJ Wagner as well. Leading scores in this game for Arkansas were Duthiero with 23 points, Boogie Flame with 20, Big Z with 15. Leading rebounders, Thiero with 6, Nelly Davis with 6, and Big Z with 5. Arkansas had a good night shooting in this one, 59.6% from the field, 31 of 52, 42.9% from the three-point line, 9 of 21, and 80% from the free throw line, going 20 of 25. I feel like you see game by game that their shooting is getting better, especially from deep. Cal said a few weeks ago that he wants to take anywhere 21 to 23 threes a game, and you're starting to see that, but we're actually starting to hit them now. Shooting 42%, making 9 in this game is where you want to be. And, of course, shooting better from the field, 59%. That's great overall. And then, of course, hitting your free throws. And, this is a good test for this team as we've addressed the concerns of depth because we're missing a couple guys. So you're having to rely on about 7 guys. And, you could tell towards the end of this game, these guys were getting gassed. It didn't help. Also, you had Pacific come out and just really shoot the lights out from deep. In this one, they hit 12 of 35 from the deep ball, and it seemed like they couldn't miss early in the game. They went dry right there at the end where Arkansas was able to make a push and kind of pull away a little bit.
Yeah, that was a big thing that stuck out to me is even in the first half when it literally didn't feel like they could miss, contested or not contested. I even thought we were playing fairly decent perimeter defense. They were just hitting everything. The theme to me throughout all the games we played is our defense hasn't really been bad. And then on the flip side of things, even when a opposing team is shooting fairly well, we've been able to match that, or at least close. Even in the first half, it's not like we were getting down. We were still up, 5-6 points, maybe 10 points, and they'd make a run with a couple flurries or something like that. But it's not like they were making runs and getting 10 points ahead of us or something. We were having to play from behind. Like we were also doing fairly well on the offensive side of things. It just didn't quite feel like it with, how many big threes they were hitting to kind of get the lead back close or something. That was taking a little bit of the air out of the building because Arkansas was having runs of our own and extending the lead, to 6, 8, 10 points. And then boom, they'd hit a flurry and come back, within 3 or something like that. And so that was getting the crowd out of it a little bit because it felt like even in the first half, we were on the cusp of, making it a blowout early with how well we were playing offensively. It's just they were doing a very good job kind of sticking with us. So you got to give credit to Arkansas's offense. I thought we shot well the entire game. It's not like, earlier on in the season, I can't remember who we were playing, Troy, I believe it was, where we were just bone dry, cold as could be in the first half. Thankfully had about a 50-point second half to win comfortably. But this game was not that way. the offense was clicking from the start. You could tell that the lack of depth was a little bit of a problem on some rebounds and things like that, and a couple of rotation type things on defense. But overall, I thought Arkansas played a lot better than you would have thought we did based off of all the commentary you saw on social media. I frankly couldn't believe half the stuff I was reading with people getting frustrated at this game. I thought we looked fine. Even on defense, I thought we looked fine. You can't help it when, they have opposing players that are 6 of 8 at halftime with all 6 of those being threes or something wild. I mean, that was legitimately happening in this game. It was crazy. But to me, I thought it was a great test to be able to go through some adversity where another team is hitting everything no matter what defense you're playing. We were having good, defensive possessions, forcing them for late shots in the shot clock. They'd be bailed out by a late 3 or something like that. Those are disheartening when they happen. And to be able to kind of bounce out of that depressing type play, go down to your end of the floor and get a bucket yourself or something positive. I thought we did a great job fighting through that adversity, if you will, in the first half, and then carried it over into the second half and ended up winning this game comfortably as well with a shorthanded team. So I think you get Jonas Adu, you get Brazil back in this game. I don't think some of the flurries happen early on because you got a little bit better rim protection, a little bit better length out there than what we did have. And I don't even know if it's a 91-72. It's probably more of like a 85-50 or something like that, So overall, we did outplay them in this game, in my opinion. We were just feeling a little bit of the pain of not having some of the bigger bodies down low.
Yeah. And that's like Pigpen point here. Depth worries me. Cal wanted 9 players. Did he not think players would get hurt? And that had to go through his mind. But yeah, I mean, when you see like you're currently without Adu, Brazil, was playing well in that game. He got hurt, within the first 9 minutes there. But then now, other than Big Z, you're without a big, and
that hurts you when it comes to conference play if you don't have
when
it
it
back
comes
by
to conference play, and you're having to rely a little bit more heavily on some of these freshmen. Look at Billy Richmond, Carter Knox. Both those guys played 23 and 22 minutes. Billy Richmond scoring 9 points, Carter Knox only scoring 2. Carter Knox banged up his hand a little bit in that game early on. But, Richmond was 4 of 7 from the field. Carter Knox 0 for 2. He was 2 of 2 from the free throw lines where his only points were. So, in this case, these freshmen are having to grow up really quick. You have Boogie Flan that very much you wouldn't think he's a freshman unless somebody told you he was. He's coming out there and, he's had double digits almost every single game that he's played so far this season. And, he's every bit of what we recruited him to be and what the expectation and the analysis was that he would be. And you saw DJ Wagner bump back 35 minutes, but he put up 14 points after having that big goose egg on the score column after last game. And he bounced back, hit 2 for 4 from deep, and was just able to come in and, play his game, which we saw when he's more aggressive and can also share the ball, having 5 assists in this game. That's big. But, I mean, you can't talk about this year's Razorback team, especially throughout the season so far, without talking about Adu Thero. He has been the most consistent, rock-solid guy on this team. He played 29 minutes in this game, put up 23 points, 8 of 10 from the field, 1 of 2 from deep, 6 of 7 from the free throw line. Also had 6 rebounds, 2 assists, 4 steals to only 1 turnover. So, man is doing it all for Arkansas right now, where you kind of see some of these other guys struggling. You had Nelly Davis kind of getting back in rhythm a little bit. He hit 2 of 3 from deep. That's what we need to see him start hitting more from deep, and that may be a sign his wrist injury is getting a little bit better. But it's definitely – this team still got some more growing to do, but I think you can tell game by game they're looking a little bit better each game as far as that chemistry and just being able to play together like a team.
Yeah, the one thing that stuck out to me offensively in this game is they've been improving all year, but this was probably the best I've seen of the dribble drive, kick out to the open 3, or make that extra swing pass around the top to find the guy for the open shot. That looked more natural in this game than it has all year, as far as just the chemistry where these guys are understanding where their fellow teammates are going to be. They're understanding the plays and things of that nature, more and more and more each week. And that's showing on the court. things are flowing more naturally than they did, if you look back to like week 1 or something like that. Granted, we're still making mistakes. We still had more turnovers in this game than we should have, things like that. But overall, you can tell that we are on an upward trajectory just on the learning curve of getting these guys to play well together. I still hate that we're not, full strength right now to really get the full picture of how everyone is playing together all at the same time. Kind of having your shortened roster here, it still leaves some question marks, but I am confident that Brazil has surprised the coaching staff and frankly surprised a lot of fans with how well he has played in the minutes that he's gotten. He was earning quite a bit of minutes, in my opinion, just with how well he was playing defense, how well he was rebounding the ball, how much more physical he looked than last year, for example. I think, hoping this injury doesn't kind of bring back some fear, but I felt like he was mentally more ready to play physically. I don't really know if that's the right way of saying it, but last year I felt like he was a little bit timid with maybe some of that injury memories in his brain or something like that, not wanting to re-injure himself. I understand that, but
that's a tough mentality to get past after
it is
2 straight seasons. 2 years ago he had that ACL, last year he had that nagging shoulder injury, so it's tough to get through those mentally and then be able to play. But hopefully that isn't a super nagging ankle injury he has, because he was playing well in that game. He was probably on his way to a double-double in that game. Played 9 minutes, had I think 5 points, 6 rebounds, 9 minutes in. So he was playing really well, playing confidently, and so hopefully.
And he has in every game he's played in. He's looked good in every game he's played in my opinion. So I felt like he was on the right trajectory as well, and really fitting in with what this team was needing him to do. But hopefully, when these guys do get healthy, it's not going to be an adjustment chemistry-wise, similar to, kind of how we discussed, like, the Nick Smith things, a couple years ago or whatever. Like, he was great at times, but sometimes it felt like when he would come in after his injuries, the chemistry would get a little bit thrown off and stuff like that. So I'm hoping we can avoid that type of issue and just purely improve as we get some of these guys back in there. But I am excited with the way this team is looking. Like I said, this game was a hard game. Pacific was not near as bad as some people might have thought, especially with how well their offensive flurries were in the first half. I mean, that's tough to withstand that and then still have the lead at halftime and then come out and, kind of bust it open the second half a little bit more with a few shots of theirs not going in, and if we're able to force a few more turnovers and things like that. So anyway, to me, this felt like a good building game where we learned even more about ourselves. And every game this year has been that way, but we're slowly building on these, and I'm excited to see how we stack up to more stiff competition, similar to Baylor, for example. We competed with them the entire game. That was just a very tough matchup. So I think that'll be kind of Arkansas's MO. We might steal some games against some tough competition that we maybe shouldn't, for example, and then we might lose a few against tough-ish competition that we might shouldn't. So we'll see how consistent they can play at that high of a level when we get to that better competition. But I think we're on the right path to be very, very competitive throughout the entire year.
Yeah, I agree. And, Arkansas will be back in action tomorrow night at 8 o'clock, taking on Little Rock coming to town. You don't have, unfortunately, the storyline of KK Robinson returning to Bud Walton, at least on the court. We'll have to wait because, before the season, he injured his knee and is out indefinitely. So, you hate to see that and him being hurt. But not to get on a soapbox here or open up anything, but quickly I want to address, it's been kind of after Pacific. I don't know what the issue is with attendance being so poor this season at the games. I mean, Seth, you can probably attest to it from seeing it on TV. It's not great. And yes, I know it's just Pacific, but I mean, when you have your coach coming out after the game and being like, hey, where's everybody at? You've got a Hall of Fame coach. You got a lot of talented team. Sure, they're not like to their peak of where they're probably going to be towards the end of the season. But come on, guys. Like we were showing up, week in and week out, these midweek games when Muss was here. So why wouldn't you do equally the same or more with a guy like Coach Cal coming in? And the big thing is I think you have a lot of veteran season ticket holders that, it's not a big game, so they're not necessarily worried about coming to or whatever it may be. But if you know you're not coming to the game, I 100% agree here, Pigpen, PTSD from football. But if you're a season ticket holder and you're not going to the game, what's the harm in trying to get somebody to go? That way the seats are filled. I just don't understand it. I myself have been, the past 2 seasons trying to get season tickets for basketball and not having any luck. And, if I had season tickets, I would, be there every night of the week that I could. And if I didn't, hey, hey, so-and-so, you want to go to the game? Here, take these tickets. I'm not going to try to just, sell them and double my money or whatever it may be, and that is happening with some season ticket holders that are wanting to post it and try to, upcharge a little bit on tickets for these games. But I don't know. That's a frustrating point. I've been to 2 games this season, luckily. And both those games, it was Lipscomb and then the Troy game as well. And I mean, I'm disappointed in attendance. It's frustrating. Like, it's not like we're bad or just, hired some no-name after Muss left. It's like we went out and got John Calipari from Kentucky. Like, come on, guys. Like, we've got to be at these games and having the crowds like we did when Muss was here, because it's not a drop-off by any means.
Well, I think there's a couple things that go into it. Is you are still competing with football in a sense on people's time. Also scheduling, there'll be more Saturday games and things of that nature, after the end of the year. You get into conference and also football's over. It's kind of this way every year at the beginning of the season. Even when Muss was there, it does kind of have a feel like maybe there is less fans there for some of these midweek games.
But it doesn't seem that it was this empty when Muss was here, though, because I remember playing, I think it was like Gardner Webb or somebody, and it was a packed house early in the season. And I don't know. I get there. You're going to have less people for sure before conference play and whatnot. But this seems like almost an all-time low. Like, you don't even have the lower bowl filled up.
Yeah. I think part of that, too, boils down to this whole team's new besides Brazil. And I know you went out and got a Hall of Fame coach, and that should have some pull. And I think it does, but maybe not as much as some people were expecting it to. Is when you consider like some of the players that were on this team over the last few years, like a Devo Davis, like a Jalen Williams, guys like that were either hometown kids or somebody that'd been there for several years, that people wanted to go watch them play because they were already a fan of them from the previous year or something like that. And obviously the coach makes a big difference, and you want to go watch, a good coach team and stuff like that. But there's not a lot of like name recognition necessarily with the players yet, outside of Brazil. And so that may have more to do with it than people are thinking as well. With it being just kind of a whole bunch of fresh faces, there's a lot of question marks on, are we going to be good? We think we're going to be good, but the jury's still out. I've got something else going on tonight. Plus, I'm going to the game Saturday, so I don't really want to go to Fayetteville twice or something if you're not already in Fayetteville. I know people personally that have done that. There's a personal story, buddy I work with. His family got given some tickets that who gave them to them were season ticket holders or are season ticket holders, have been since 99 apparently, haven't been to a single game yet. They live in the Russellville area where I live. It's not terribly far. It's about an hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes or so. They haven't been to a single game yet. They openly admitted to my buddy I work with that, we just hadn't really been to any of the early ones yet. They've all been weeknights, not conference games. We go to most of the conference games, especially if it's weekends or a big game or something like that, even if it is during the week. But gas is expensive. Meals are expensive, all those types of things. Even if they already have the tickets as a season ticket holder, they haven't been going to the game. So thankfully, they did give some tickets to my friend Jackie that I work with to try to make it to some of these that they haven't been able to go to. So he's got tickets for, I can't remember which one it was. It's one of the ones upcoming, but they actually are trying to do a better job of giving away their tickets now. But those first few weeks, they weren't. They weren't really even thinking about it, was my understanding from what my friend told me. So that's just kind of a almost firsthand experience of people that I am close to in this area of the state. And that's not even talking about if somebody has season tickets and live even further away, 2-3 hours away, something like that. So I don't know how you fix it all, because it's tough to get there on a weeknight if you don't live, within 30 minutes or so. But how do we do a better job or find a better forum for either giving away or selling at a? I also have frustrations with people selling tickets for over face value, but that's a conversation for another time. But how do we find a better forum other than just like these Facebook groups of
Right.
getting people tickets that if you can't make it? And it needs to be something that can happen kind of on the fly quickly. I don't know if it needs to be first come, first serve necessarily, like through the Razorback app. If you can't go, you donate your tickets and they go basically to a first come, first serve. If you're on the app and you see, hey, these tickets
Like
are
you
available to
put your name on
claim.
a wait list or something.
Yeah, and then boom, you get them and you can claim them, and now you can go for free because somebody else couldn't use their season ticket. So there's still season ticket holders. There's still, grandfathered in or whatever to the next year to be season ticket holders, but there needs to be a tried and true system, I think, on ticket swapping or ticket donating or something like that to the ones you can't go to. So either a student can get a better seat than they're used to getting. That's for sure going to go if they can't make to a student section or something like that. Or B, the people that are local that have been, for just like you, been trying to get season tickets, but it's incredibly hard because there's not enough of them for one thing. But then on the flip side, there's kind of too many at the same time, depending on which angle you look at it. But it's impossibly hard to get on the list for season tickets with the way the donations and all that stuff is, and the wait list is 47 miles long, like all this stuff. I think it would be a good way to bridge that gap. But I'm curious to see if the university tries to find a solution that can help everyone. It can make it easier for the season ticket holders to give away their tickets for the games they can't go to without them having to personally find someone they know to give them to, unless they want to. If they can find somebody they know, fine. But if they can't, I can just donate them to the app, and then somebody will claim them and go. Make it nice and easy and almost anonymous at that point, and who cares? We need to find a way to make that happen. I don't know the ins and outs from like a infrastructure, IT type. I don't know how you would do it. There's got to be a way, though, and we need to figure that out sooner than later. Because to your point, I think there are plenty of fans that would go if they could get tickets for free or even at a discounted rate to some of these midweek games that, we don't really care about as much as a conference game. But there's still fans that would go watch this if they had the availability to and didn't have to pay an arm and a leg and fees off Vivid Seats or whatever just to get the resale tickets there. So find a way somehow. There's my spiel. I don't know if it's going to be an easy answer, but it seems like it should be an easy answer.
Yeah. Big Ben has a point here. This is another thing that, is frustrating. You have companies out there that'll buy 20 seats, but on a regular basis, you have 2 to 3 people going. It's crazy too. It's like, I don't know how you regulate it. And I don't even know if you can, because you're not going to tell somebody, no, you can't buy tickets because you're not going to turn down revenue. And to your point, Seth, I understand people that are a distance away, and it's a whole big, big time consumption to come. But you got to think of the percentage of season ticket holders that are in Northwest Arkansas alone. That's the ones that it really irks me, I guess, if you will. Is like you are literally, 15, 20-minute drive. You're within the area of Northwest Arkansas. But yeah, don't want to get too off topic, but it's sad when your coach has to come out and say, hey, give your tickets to somebody or whatever. We need people here. You have a Hall of Fame coach asking for more attendance, and that shouldn't be the case. So,
and you've got a good team. To your point, it's not like we're the women's basketball team out there that's just getting obliterated all the time. I can understand maybe some poor turnout. You don't want to go see that all the time. We are very competitive. We're beating the teams we should very well. We're showing tremendous growth. You've got guys on this team that are going to be in the NBA, maybe even next year. Like, you don't want to go watch that? Like, I get it.
Thero's making this case for a lottery picker right now.
100%. Just due to the athleticism and how high his ceiling can be. It's off the charts. I mean, literally off the charts. So I will be done with my spiel, but there's got to be a better solution for the people that even that are aware, hey, I can't make it, but I don't want to go through the hassle of trying to hop on Facebook or find some of my friends that are free. Like, I'm sending out a group text. I can understand not wanting to really deal with that either, especially if you're busy. Find an easier solution that is university supported and ran. I really don't know how you can phrase it correctly, but it's handled at the university level to donate your ticket to. You can hop on there at any time and kind of refresh it and see what's available and claim them if they're available, or to your point, be on a waiting list or something like that for those free tickets. And then ding, 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 you're a winner. You got drawn for these 2 tickets that Joe donated or whatever. I don't know. We got to find a way to do that rather than it all being handled outside of the university's app or whatever, because it's just hard right now. It's too hard. And if you don't want to take the time to handle getting it transferred to somebody, you're not going to do it because it's a pain right now.
Right. 100%. Well, quickly, and I'll emphasize quickly, recap the Arkansas women's game that played tonight. That we just talked about. They lost by nearly 50 to UCL on the road. Well, they come back home and don't do much better, where they fall to Oral Roberts 94-73. You lose by 21 at home. Again, to a team you would think should be an easy win. Arkansas's 3-3 on the season now, 2-2 at home. Your leading scorers in this game, Izzy Higginbotham, once again, she seems to be the go-to person. It's going to be the leading player on this team this season with 27 points. You had Kiki Smith with 20 tonight. Ojinua with 6, Jenna Lawrence with 6, and then you had a handful of other players get several minutes tonight. Shooting-wise, Arkansas shot 36.9% from the field, 24-65, 36.4% from deep, going 8 of 22, and 77% from the free throw line, going 17 of 22. But, man, there's something off with this team, and I don't know what's going to fix it, honestly.
Well, they're bad on defense, for one thing. We don't have enough size. That's apparent all the time. And then even tonight, you didn't really just shoot horribly, but you still lost by 20. Yeah, Pigpen's not wrong. It's time. I mean, it's been time, honestly, in my opinion, for the last 2 years. I don't want to, wish anybody ill and want them to get fired specifically just for their own, life sake. But if you're the university, this has got to be the last year. Personally, I don't even know if he should make it to the end of the year. You probably ought to try to can him halfway through and get a head start on the next coach search and go find you some up-and-comer that can come in with a little bit more fire and vigor, because I think Neighbors is just complacent now. He's not recruiting well. You can tell he don't even try hard to keep his players that he does have. I got a bad taste in my mouth from it all, and I don't think this season's going to make it any better. So,
yeah,
that's a bad loss. Probably the worst loss so far, in my opinion. It's going to be a tough year.
Yeah. As we said, Arkansas men's basketball will be back in action tomorrow night versus Little Rock. They'll have a game on Monday, and they will be playing on Thanksgiving Day versus Illinois in Kansas City, the T-Mobile Center. So that competition level is about to get up a notch, where you're going to be playing other Power 5 or Power 4 schools. I guess technically, yeah, thinking about it. And so your level is about to ramp up. You've got Illinois next week. You've got on the road at Miami the following week, and then you still got Michigan as well. So before you open up conference play. So we're about to have some more tests where it'll be good to hopefully get through these next couple of games that should be wins, and then see what we can do and kind of build off. Like we played well against Baylor, so what we can do against some, other like Big 12 or ACC schools that, are historically good programs. So
got my fingers crossed, man. I think we're going to be decent.
100% agree. I'm looking forward to seeing how this season unfolds. We'll jump over to Arkansas soccer, where it's tournament time, and Arkansas is hosting. They hosted their first round. They were a number 2 seed in their division or their section of the bracket, and they are hosting. They hosted last week on Friday night, where they took on Oklahoma State. They won this game 4-0, where they had all 4 of those goals come in the first half, and this was Arkansas's largest crowd in postseason history with 2,235 fans in attendance. Kate Doyle scores the opening goal for Arkansas just 6 minutes into the match. 10 minutes later, she scores again to put Arkansas up 2-0 and scored her 3rd brace of the season. You had freshman Anaya Robinson and Kylie Delaney scoring the final 2 goals as well. Arkansas just kind of dominated all around in this match with leading in shots 20-7 and corner kicks 12-3. They'll be back in action tomorrow night against Cal at 6:30 p.m. They'll host Cal, and then you also have another part of the bracket being played here as well. But, like we talked about, now's the time for Arkansas to make that run. And it'll be time to take on Cal and see what happens here. Is, we had that early exit from the SEC tournament, but at the end of the day, yes, the SEC tournament would be nice, but this is the tournament that you're playing for, this NCAA tournament. So it will be interesting if we make it to the finals of this bracket, because we're matched up with Mississippi State. And if you remember, that is the one lone loss we have in regular season conference play was to Mississippi State. So knock on wood, could be a potential revenge meetup for this Kobe Hale-led soccer team.
Yeah, the writing on the wall is looking pretty fun. If things come to fruition, how we're all hoping they do, and you can get revenge and make it out of your regional. It's got kind of similar taste to like some of our baseball regionals of years past and stuff like that, so it's not always maybe a bad thing to get an early exit from the SEC tournament and kind of focus your eyes and your practice and your preparation to the NCAA tournament and come out strong and have a very, very good opening match against the Oklahoma State team. That's not just terrible. I mean, they're decent competition, but we're very much, in a different echelon. So did what you're supposed to do, built a little momentum, had a great crowd there. Hopefully that carries over to tomorrow night, and then they can kind of keep that rolling and find a way to get out of this with a good win against Mississippi State or whoever. But that would be the icing on the cake if we can beat them to keep advancing.
I agree 100%. This is hopefully, like you say, this is the time of the year this team is primed for. So, hopefully they can make a good run and see what happens there. We'll jump over to Arkansas volleyball, where, a couple of losses here, both on the road at Ole Miss, falling 3 matches to 1. On the road to LSU, falling 3-0. Arkansas will take on Tennessee tomorrow on the road at 5:30, so need to bounce back for them. As we keep going here, it's time to talk some Arkansas football, and what we hinted at is a must-win this week for Coach Pittman, as it is the last home game of the season. But before we do, we can't forget to mention Scarlet Letter, Arkansas's very own handcrafted spiked seltzer, made right here in Northwest Arkansas, right in our very own backyard in Springdale at Core Brewing. So if you're in the Northwest Arkansas area, get up here, check them out, go visit. It's a really cool spot. If you're not, just go to your local alcohol distribution center sales area and, look for that S on the can, and you'll be in good luck. They just announced today they're releasing their kind of winter fall type flavor. I believe it's like cranberry apple, ginger, vanilla, so very much Christmassy time type vibe there.
100%.
And then can't forget about Jared's Kicking Sauce, the sauce that goes everything with Thanksgiving coming up. Get you a bottle, and you'll be the hit or the host with the best sauce. And go check them out. I know Seth's a big fan. I'm a big fan, and they're an up and coming, but you won't be disappointed if you go out there and order.
It's way good.
Bottle.
Yeah, I can't say enough good things about Jared's Kicking Sauce, man. It's almost like a combination of like a Chick-fil-A sauce with a little bit of like horseradish kick with something else in there. I really don't know how to describe it, but it's phenomenal. It's really good on like chicken nuggets, things like that. My personal favorite, it's on grilled cheeses, but you can put it on literally anything. It's going to be solid.
100%. I couldn't agree more. Arkansas taking on Louisiana Tech this week. It is a big matchup for Arkansas, like we were hinting at and talking about earlier. It's just one of those things where you're not only looking at potentially riding this game, your bowl eligibility riding on this game, just because historically you haven't had great success against Missouri, so you don't want to have to rely on that game to get you your bowl eligibility. Would love to be a bowl eligible already right now. You got to think if that couple things go different in that Oklahoma State game, you're looking at bowl eligibility already. But with that being said, Arkansas does come in favored by 22.5 in this game. Louisiana Tech is 4-6 on the season. They are coming off, however, a big win. They knocked off Western Kentucky last week, who is, number 2 team in their conference, in the Conference USA. I just want to see some live from the offense this week. You know what the defense can do. We've seen it, off and on this season, how good this defense can be. But the inconsistency with the offense has been, I think a little bit worse than what defense has been, because you think if, you have a little bit, you score in the first half last week's game probably looks a little bit different when it comes down to it at the end. So, whatever they know in Vegas, they're thinking Arkansas should win pretty handily in this one, and I agree very much. Come out there, don't overlook them or don't kind of be overconfident that, you're just going to run away with this one, because as a Razorback fan, we've seen this happen multiple times, throughout, different coaching tenures where you have I don't want to say a cupcake game, but an easier game against a lesser opponent late in the season, and that comes back to bite you, and you get upset, and could result in a job loss or whatever it may be.
Yeah, this game is kind of giving me vibes of like UAB earlier in the season. I don't think this team is as good as UAB. Don't get me wrong. I think there is a pretty strong chance we actually cover that spread. The key factor, and we've been talking about it all year long, it's been our Achilles heel in a lot of games, is turnovers. Can you come back? You had a not great showing turnover-wise against Texas. I think we had 2, but they were like worst case scenario, like very, very pivotal, detrimental turnovers, with one being while we were driving, finally having some good progress on offense, and that was a drive killer on that interception. And then the fumble was just kind of a opportunity killer where we had a chance to kind of get it closer at the end of the game, and it just kind of snuffed it out. So you got to mitigate that. I don't think you're going to be in a scenario where you have like a game-changing turnover in this game, even if you do have some turnovers. But you want to play clean, play to what your expectation is, similar to how we did against a Mississippi State, for example. If this team can come out and execute on offense to that level, to that cleanliness, and lack of mistakes and penalties and things like that, I think there's a good chance we cover this spread. We should beat this team. This should be our bowl eligibility win, no matter really how you slice it. I think we've got enough talent, even if, Talon doesn't play great, even if, the defense doesn't just have their best showing and we do give up, 20 points or something like that. You should be able to run the ball well enough against this team to mitigate a lot of things. I think that's one thing that we haven't done enough this year is run the ball. Honestly, I honestly thought we should have ran the ball more against Texas. I felt like we went a little bit too pass heavy too often on some possessions. Sometimes it worked out on a couple big plays, and sometimes it was what cost you on that drive. So running the ball sometimes goes well, sometimes it doesn't. You don't always know, especially against a good team like Texas. It's a little tough to say, okay, yeah, if we would have ran the ball, we would have got 3 yards there. Yeah, you may not have. You don't know. But a team like Louisiana Tech, your offensive line has improved enough that they should be able to push this team around, and you should be able to establish a line of scrimmage fairly dominant fashion to run the ball. And then on the flip side of that, I think Talon has potential to have a pretty good bounce back game, statistically speaking. If we are able to run the ball well, it'll open up everything. He'll be able to run, he'll be able to throw. I mean, all those things should be a lot easier in this game to have a consistent offensive output. So to your point, that's exactly what I'm going to be looking for, is us to bounce back offensively and have multiple possessions in a row, even, where we're either getting field goals or touchdowns or something, positive like that on the scoreboard. I don't want to see us have consistency struggles, whether we have one good drive but then go 3 and out the next drive. That does not need to happen against this opponent. To me, that'll be an indicator that you're still having issues staying ahead of the chains and still having issues making mistakes and getting yourself behind the sticks with a penalty or whatever it is. That can't happen in this game, especially if you're trying to kind of show more improvement. We've had a good trajectory. If you look at the season from a whole, I feel like we've had a good consistent trajectory, but there's been some hiccups in there where we haven't looked great. not even just because the team we were playing was better than us, but because of our own mistakes, shooting ourselves in the foot. So to me, to kind of continue that trajectory and help show that this season did get better from start to finish, this has to be an almost, I'm not going to say perfect game, but it's got to be a Mississippi State type win where you go in, do what you're supposed to, you score on most of your possessions, you limit a lot of their possessions on defense. You can still give up a little bit on defense, and that's okay, but you really have to be dominant. And I hope that if that does come to fruition, like I think it should, can you carry that against Missouri where the matchup is very even in my mind? We've got a great shot of playing them close, potentially beating them. I think they're probably better than Auburn. I think they're probably better than Mississippi State, but I don't think it's by a lot. And so I think that's a winnable game where we match up pretty close to them, where they're kind of in the same realm of talent, realm of consistency. They've had the same problems we've had off and on this year with some turnovers and some consistency issues on scoring the ball and even defending and things like that. So we'll see. That, to me, that's the biggest game left on the schedule that could be a make or break on keeping coaches and stuff. Obviously, you've got to win Louisiana Tech. That's a must win. We've already kind of established that earlier on in the show, but you need to use this as a building moment to, ready yourself to win that Missouri game. If you can win both these, get a decent bowl game, potentially win that, you still have a chance at 8. I mean, really, that's really kind of what we're looking at right now is you can still get to 8 wins, which sounds insane. But it is possible, even though we've had some ugly losses this year. This team's still, in my mind, a decent football team that's shown progress this year. So too many people are hitting the panic button. I know we didn't play the best against Texas, and we had some issues that you play just a little better, and that's a winnable game, which sounds insane, but it was with how good the defense played. But this is still a good team that showed good progress, even though you got a lot of negativity out there right now. I'm hoping they can, turn that negativity around from the fan base perspective. Win the fans back over here at the end of the year, and I think that bodes well for recruiting and building into what next year can be potentially. I don't want to see any of these guys go myself. I know some people do, but anyway, that's kind of my hopes and wishes for how this game pans out and then how the next game pans out.
Yeah, I agree. A couple of players we'll talk about. Evan Bullock, the quarterback for Louisiana Tech. Like you talked about, they've struggled a lot mightily this season. You look at last game, that win they had over West Kentucky, he had 66 passing yards. That was it. No touchdowns, no interceptions, just 66 passing yards, not doing much through the air. Their leading rusher, Wiggins, 83 carries, 351 yards on the season and only 1 touchdown. Their leading receiver, Edwards, 59 receptions, 760 yards, 6 touchdowns. Just not a lot of offense on this team. They, like we said, they are 4-6 on the season. Again, it's hard to really talk about and dive into matchups in this game because ideally you should
outmatch them tremendously.
You should outmatch them in every single position. And so it's one of those things where it's hard to talk about those because you probably win every matchup as far as talent across the board. And with everybody being healthy for the most part, you should be able to keep fresh running backs in for Arkansas between a rotation of, DeQuinn Jackson, Rashad Dominion, Braylon Russell, Rodney Hill. There's no excuse for those guys to, have just an insane volume of carries compared to the other guy, unless maybe they're just having a hot hand and, whatever it may be. But this should be a game, like we said, and can't stress enough, just go out there and take care of business. You're projected to win. You should win. Let's go out there and get bowl eligible this week and then, have some confidence and, maybe go get a big win on the road against Missouri next week. As we talked about, they're not that great of a team this year, despite them only having 2 losses, still being ranked. Like, I don't care. At the end of the day,
look at some of their wins.
Not a good football team, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of close, lucky wins. I mean, that Oklahoma game that they won off of that funky scoop and score there.
With 30 seconds left in the game.
It's Missouri's luck, and it scares me again to play them because they somehow seem to get lucky bounces a lot like that the last couple of years, and so I'm nervous just due to that alone. But this is the year to beat them, man. Like, I think it really is.
That would be, I would love to see that. We know kind of from Pittman's press conference earlier in the week, he kind of confirmed after the season too. The Missouri game, he said right after that he's going to have himself a hip replacement. He said, he's mentioned it in press conferences that's bothering him all season. He said he found out, a few not long before the season started, and he didn't want to do anything before the season with it being so close to the season. Things don't necessarily go as planned. That could be a good way to tie in things of always having a hip replacement. Well, maybe he decides to kind of, quote unquote, retire and ride off in the sunset, if you will. Not saying that's necessarily going to happen, but, I could see it being spun that way if, say, knock on wood, you drop Louisiana Tech, you don't beat Missouri, and you don't make a bowl game. I mean, that's a realistic possibility, but, I think Arkansas comes out here, gets things done, gets that bowl eligibility, would love to see us beat Missouri, and not saying we're just settling for bowl games, but looking at the rest of the season, the max potential here is for Arkansas to get 8 wins. That's the, outlook here.
That should be the goal. And I think everybody in that locker room should understand that that's the goal and that it's achievable. I know that they've, looked at every game they've played this year as a winnable game. And frankly, they have been. Even, we talked about it, even Ole Miss, I know they came in and blew us out, but like, matchup wise, if a few things would have went a little bit differently and we hadn't just had an abysmal showing in the secondary, I still feel like our team has the talent to compete with them if the day goes correctly. And it's tough when you have to put that caveat in there that we can't compete with them any given day, every time. There is going to have to be some luck involved for us to beat some of the upper echelon teams, all the time. But, I think Chuck said it best the other day on the Chuck and Bo show, where you've got some of these other schools where they're getting, generational type talents every 3 to 5 years. Alabama, for example, has a lot of good players come out of Alabama. Texas, obviously. Arkansas has had 1 or 2, a McFadden, a Traylon Burks.
That's been 20 years nearly.
Yeah. McFadden and Traylon Burks are kind of, some of the more recent ones that I think are like generational type talents. And I know Burks hasn't done a ton in like the NFL with injuries, but like he was a freakazoid college athlete, one of the best wide receivers that's come through here in a long time. You'd have to go back to obviously like the Joe Adams, Greg Childs, all those guys' days. And there was some great ones there,
and
but I don't know.
Those weren't in-state guys. We're talking specifically your Arkansas homegrown guys.
Your homegrown boys, yeah. I mean, literally, you're really looking at like McFadden and Burks. Burks was from Warren, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's come from that Warren wide receiver tree.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, that doesn't happen a lot here. And just due to that alone, it makes it to where you're not going to be as much of a head start as some of these other schools that have better in-state talent that you're keeping in-state. And, heck, sometimes we lose some of our good in-state talent, too. So, it's tough just from a competition standpoint like that. That's a whole different conversation for a different time. But I still think even with the way this season's been and where we did have some tough losses, those games weren't necessarily tough losses because we were out-talented just astronomically. It was we had 5 turnovers or A, B, or C reason like that. Not necessarily
whenever you lose the turnover battle, it's not good odds that you're going to win.
Yeah, the secondary would be about the only spot I might could say, yeah, we were out-talented there against like Ole Miss, for example, and then maybe even LSU, even though I think that might have been scheming more than anything. But overall, though, I feel like we do have the talent to compete. It's just mistakes.
Plus, you're missing Jalen
not
Braxton
quite there.
too.
Yeah, well, we've been, somewhat depleted in our secondary off and on throughout the year. So I'm not trying to, make an excuse per se, but that is hard. That is hard from a coaching's perspective. That is hard to adjust week in, week out what your player rotation is and having consistent play when that's like one of the most critical positions on the field where communication and alignment and all that pre-snap and knowing what you're doing and knowing your assignment is so critical when you're rolling so many different guys out there just due to injuries alone. That makes that hard. So there's that side note. But anyway, long and short of it is this team has been competitive this year, even though we have had some tough losses. There's some caveats in those tough losses that it's not, like I said, it's not just due to lack of talent alone. We are behind the 8 ball in talent. I'm not going to deny that, but we are also better than a lot of people give us credit for too. So Kind of want to put that out there.
Yeah, agree. Just a side note, beyond the watch, this game this weekend, you could see Andrew Armstrong break that 1,000-yard receiving mark this weekend. He's at 931 yards on the season, so he's 69 yards away from breaking that 1,000-yard mark, and I would be willing to bet that he gets that done this weekend. Would love to see that for him. He's been the most consistent guy all season for Arkansas in that receiving core. Big things there. But like we said, Arkansas will take on Louisiana Tech this Saturday at 3 p.m. in Donald W. Reynolds Razorback Stadium for the final home game of the 2024 football season. And then they will take on Missouri the next Saturday on the road. Not on Black Friday this year, which is a little bit of a change up. But it'll be another tough matchup to see if Arkansas can get bowl eligible. So get out there, go to the game if you can, and should be an exciting game from the standpoint of getting things done, and hopefully having that Mississippi State type of game and just a lot of fun to watch. So
I'm looking for an offensive outpour for sure. It needs to happen. Get everybody's confidence back that we are good at scoring the ball. It needs to happen.
I was about to say that potential with the Petrino offense is there. It's just year one of that. Historically, if you look at his, when he was here as head coach before running his offense, it gets progressively better year after year. So you got to think if things go right this year, Pittman is back this year. Some people won't like that. Some people are fine with it. And Petrino's back. You have Taylor Green back, even Singleton. If you open it up to a quarterback battle, both those guys would be in year two of the Petrino offense and be able to pick it up much more. So, lots of pros and cons there. Not now's not the time to dive into that. Got a game this week, got to get the win. So, that would be big.
100%.
And I will say before we get out of here, quick little announcement from us here. You're going to see a little bit of personnel changes around here. Seth, due to some family things, are going to be taking a step back from the show for a little bit. Not gone forever, but, might be a hot minute before he's back. And, whenever he wants to hop on as guest will be fine. But
I'm going to try to be on for off and on type things. If I can, we'll play that by ear. But 9-month-old at nighttime, it's getting harder and harder just finding time. Like Christy's in there fighting him right now. I can hear him through the door, but been a blast. This is not forever. This is goodbye for now, not forever. That's for sure. But just got to free up a little bit more time in the evenings for family stuff. But once he's a little older and hopefully our nighttime routines get a little bit better, I'll be back.
I was about to say, I know I told you before, your seat's always open. We'll be glad to have you back. But with that being said, you'll see a rotation of some people, familiar faces that you've seen on the show before. You'll be seeing some more of Austin that's usually on our Sunday recaps. You'll see David and Maddie from the Hoop Southbound show, who
it's good timing with basketball.
If you don't know by now, they're both really diehard Arkansas fans as well, even though they do just a general SEC and, that type of show. But like Seth said, it's not forever. It's a see you later. So, that seat's always open where everyone wants to come back and have some time. Maybe some big news situations or some big fun conversations. We'll have them back. But starting next week, you'll see a rotation of hosts joining me on Hawgs on the Hill for the foreseeable future. But, it's been a fun time, buddy, and we'll be excited when you get back.
I'll be tuning in as much as I can, too. It's a little easier to watch than actually make the show if I'm in there rocking a kid to sleep. So, anyway, I'll make sure to chime in as much as I can and hopefully be able to jump on from time to time if possible, if time allows, especially on, like, the Sunday recaps when I'm not traveling. Seems like the last 3 weekends in a row I've been out of town. But, again, parenthood is definitely an adjustment, but it's a fun ride. It's definitely worth it, but it definitely makes hobbies somewhat tough.
Yeah, 100%. So there you have it. Go check it. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in tonight. Go like and subscribe to podcast, YouTube, Spotify. Go check out our socials, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and now the new trending Blue Sky. We are over there as well, so go check that out. We thank everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you right here on Sunday for the Sunday recap. And we're hopefully talking about an exciting Arkansas football win and basketball win both.